Ordinary Achievers Show.
Founded in 2014, the Extraordinary Achievers' vision is to empower others to be the best version of themselves. The show is hosted by Chief Lady Waynette Peters, a multi-entrepreneur, empowerment speaker, confidence mentor, positive lifestyle coach, humanitarian ambassador, and a TV host. Lady Waynette is a holder of over 35 international awards for her humanitarian, philanthropic, and international empowerment contributions and holds 2 chieftaincy titles. Welcome to the Extraordinary Achievers Show.
We welcome you to another episode of the Extraordinary Achievers Show. So we would like to say to our Facebook viewers, to our YouTube viewers, to our Twitter viewers, to viewers wherever you're watching us from our website, we welcome you to tonight's show. We have some amazing guests for you today, and we expect to be wowed. We are live every Wednesday at 8 p.m., covering topics ranging from mindfulness, awareness, self-development, and empowerment, true stories, community interest, and affairs, interviewing industry experts and those with the knowledge of the know-how, those that have overcome adversity, and we work in collaboration with community enhancement organization. Today, we once again will be joined by our transpersonal psychologist, Professor and Reverend Oluwafemi Esan, the founder of Elroy London University. And we also have our special guest, Coach Jackie Bennett, a spiritual revolutionary and the author of Life's Not Yoga, A Path to Healing and Debunking Limited Beliefs, a book that illustrates how to experience a life of joy when integrated in mind, body, and spirit. Now, let's say hello to some of our viewers that join us from home, from work, from wherever they are. Let's have some comments coming up. Pastor Rosalind Williams, my darling sister, who's all the way in the US of A. We welcome you on the show, and I'd like to say thank you, sis, for joining us. That is my big sister, and she joins us from the US of A. And thank you for joining us, Pastor. And we would like to say a welcome to Melissa, one of our coordinators on the Extraordinary Achievers Show. And she says good evening to you all, and good evening to you, Melissa. Bangi says good evening and good evening, birthday girl, and we welcome you on the show. We would like to say thank you for joining us, and we would like to urge you to share tonight's program with others. Share on Facebook platforms, share on WhatsApp. You can share us on Twitter. We are on YouTube. We are live on Facebook platforms, over 50 Facebook platforms are we live at the moment. We are live from our website, and we thank you for joining us. We want to welcome our guest today, Jackie. Jackie is an adventurer, both in journeys of the spirit and in the world of financial strategy. Raised in South Africa, she is qualified in business studies, which she has enabled her to help numerous businesses achieve their strategic and financial goals. Jackie has always pursued a parallel interest in spirituality, which has guided her into her writing career. In her first publication, Jackie Bennett wrote her memoir, Life's Not Yoga. In a quest to make spiritual sense of the traumatic life events she has experienced. Inspired by her discoveries on her life journey, Jackie created the Dare to Be Love platform, which quickly attracted an audience of over 43,000 followers, also seeking answers on how to deal with life's challenges and trauma. The Dare to Be Loved platform is a space for readers to share and to learn how this connection is made through love. Here she also shares her inspirational thoughts of poetry and personal life stories told through the lenses of a unique Dare to Be Loved self-inquiry practices. As an impassioned student of life, Jackie Bennett continues to practice and promote living a spirit-led life of courage, kindness, compassion, and love. Jackie has a Bachelor of Commerce a degree from the University of South Africa in Industrial Psychology and Economics, and an MBA from the University of Witwatersrand, including a semester abroad at Rotterdam School of Management, RSM Erasmus. Jackie is also a certified integral coach through New Ventures West and trained as a yoga teacher with Yoga Tree, acquiring both certificates in San Francisco, California. Jackie, we welcome you onto the Extraordinary Achievers Show today.
Lady Wayne, thank you for having me here this evening and for that wonderful introduction. I look forward to talking to you and being present with all of your subscribers and listeners tonight.
Fantastic. Absolutely amazing. And what a joy it is to have you here. And at what point of your life did the thoughts of writing Life's Not Yoga come to you? And how long did it take you to write Life's Not Yoga?
If I look back, and I talk a little bit about it in my book, that initially I thought I would write a book when I was about 14 years old. And whilst it wasn't going to be Life's Not Yoga, the book looked very different then. And having gone through an experience, a miracle experience at the age of 16, I felt determined that I would then write my book. And that then didn't happen. And so fast forward another 46, well, up until I was 46, that I knew that this book had to be written. It started earlier than that in about 2002 when I knew that, and I actually started dabbling with the writing, but I only committed in 2000 and end of 2011, beginning of 2012. And that took me all the way up until the end of 2019. So a good 8-9 years to finish writing the book when I committed full time to the book.
So I have my copy here, Life's Not Yoga, which I have marveled in reading. And I got my copy from Amazon and it arrived the very next day. That was about a week ago. And I have thoroughly enjoyed this. You know, the number one thing I loved about this book is I was actually able to see a snippet of the book online, which enticed me to read it. And I thought, we need to have Jackie on the show. So I am really excited. I'm like one of your number one fans. And
Thank you so much.
Thank you. And how did the title come about?
Lady Wayne, you flatter me. Thank you. The title for 7 years of the book was actually called I Dared to Ask. And there was something that kept bothering my development editor, saying that it wasn't a strong enough title from a marketing point of view, from a relatability point of view. And so they challenged me for 7 years to change the title, and I refused. And then as I got to finishing the final manuscript in 2017 and doing all the rewrites, there was something that kept saying to me I needed to change. And I think we eventually had about 100 titles. And one day I was looking through the book and I got to page 296. And I actually say out, you know, I'm in so much pain, I'm in so much agony, I'm suffering with so much loss. And in that moment, I say, life is not yoga. And it was in that moment that I went back to them and I said, isn't this the title? And we sat and we played around with it for a long time. And really what it boils down to is not only the title being Life's Not Yoga, or is it? And then a play on the subtitle, which is finding comfort in the discomfort of life, which is finding love in the chaos of life. For those of us that practice yoga, we know that our yoga teachers are continually telling us to find comfort in the pose. So it's really a play on finding comfort in the pose of life, or finding comfort in the chaos of life, and hence finding love for my life story and all my chaos in the chaos of life. So that's where the title eventually came from.
Fantastic. I love the colors as well. I mean, the colors are just so inviting. It's a really comforting book to look at, to hold, to read, and it's such an easy read that you can't put the book down. And I love how in each chapter, the stories kind of take you on a high. They take you to a thinking point. They take you to that low moment, and then they bring you back up again. Totally amazing. As you see the book in circulation and you hear bing, another book has been purchased. How does this make you feel? Do you feel like, yes, I am in the moment, and yes, I am walking in the path of purpose? How does it make you feel?
Well, the way it makes me feel is if you identify with Jackie before writing the book, which you get to explore and see that part of me in my story, I would have said yes 10, 15 years ago, the ping would have excited me. But what excites me now, which allows me to know that I have purpose in life and brings me to that present moment living, is when I get readers write to me and tell me that in reading the book was way bigger than my story. So in sharing my story and writing, and as you said, it was about taking you through those highs and lows, where you start to identify with yourself. And there's one particular reader who said she read the book 3 times. The first time she read the book, and it was through the eyes of being a character in the book, Dan in the book. And the second time she read the book, it was for compassion and understanding for me. And the third time she read the book, she knew that the book was actually for her. So that's when I really know that I have purpose in life, and this is a path of purpose for me. And that's my ping moment for me, more than the sale, when people like you enjoy the book and want to talk about the book.
Amazing. No, for me, the number one thing that came in is I need to interview her, please. It was like it's absolutely like having an Oprah moment with you for me right now. So thank you for saying yes. Jackie, we'll be back with you in a moment. We would like to acknowledge some of our viewers and the audience at home as they post their hellos and their acknowledgements. We thank you for joining us on the Extraordinary Achievers Show from YouTube, from Twitter, from our Facebook platforms, from many other Facebook platforms, including our website. Halle says good evening and what a great show today. And thank you for supporting the Extraordinary Achievers Show. We have one of our administrators, Kelsey. She says good evening and good evening to you and thank you. And Patrick T says hello, everybody. Hello, Patrick, and welcome back onto the Extraordinary Achievers Show. And we have Sir Bamikoli Roberts. Sir Bamikoli Roberts, we would like to acknowledge you as he acknowledges us and our guests and our viewers at home. Mr. Bamikoli Roberts is doing some amazing things with the youth in our community, and he is also working with organizations that are bringing some community achievements and enhancement. And we have Empress Joanne. We missed you. We didn't see you for a couple of weeks. Joanne is a woman of many different talents, and she is at the moment on the healthy challenge, and she has lost so many kilos, so many pounds, and she has been a great inspiration when it comes to what I should eat and what I should not eat and how I should exercise. And I urge you, do follow her. It surely works. I was struggling to shift the weight, and she's helped me. And Tani says, good to be back. Good evening, everyone. And it's fantastic to have you back. And DGC says, good evening, all, and good evening to you. Thank you. Joanne sends a thumbs up to all the crew, and thank you for acknowledging them. We thank you for every comment, as we thank you. Vicky says, good evening, and thank you for your compliment. And thank you for sharing Extraordinary Achievers on every single platform, every single day, every single opportunity that you have. We would like to say thank you so much for joining us. And we would like to now go back to Jackie Bennett as we talk about Life's Not Yoga. And this is my copy. This is my copy. Jackie, what do you consider a moment in this book that in reflection you sit back and as you reflect and you think this brings you to that emotional state when that maybe tearful moment, that moment that makes you remember things from the past? Is there something that sticks out for you?
You know, when you ask me that question, the first thing that comes to mind understanding that when I've come to an understanding that the past isn't relevant and neither is the future, that present moment awareness is what's really powerful and what matters and what is important. So for me, I guess because I practice yoga and more so meditation and present moment awareness by being connected with my spirit so that I can be integrated in mind, body, and soul, that is the emotional state that sticks with me most of all. But it doesn't mean at times when I am triggered or I'm flustered or something happens that past memories don't come back to me and possibly can trigger an emotion. But what I love about the work that I've done, what I love about my daily practices, is it allows me to come back to present moment awareness and celebrate the story as opposed to feeling sad about it, and celebrate some of the things that I've gone through and survived, and celebrate some of my pain stories and even my joy, that the things that happened in my life that brought me an immense amount of joy. I'm not there now, but when I come to present moment awareness, I'm always present with joy.
So I have the first page of the acknowledgement here, and it reads, "To my grandmother, my guardian angel, to my mother for your courage to be loved, no matter the turmoil, to Amanda and Jill for loving me unconditionally." Do you know, for me, I read that and then I went back and I read it again because I just wanted that to sink in when I first read that first bit. You have your author's note and you have your prologue. Then you have the part one, Burning Shame. Then you have part two, Burning Bridges. And then you have part three, Rising Phoenix. You have the acknowledgements, and then there is about the author. Could you just give us a snippet of what Burning Shame, Burning Bridges, and Rising Phoenix is about?
So part one of the book is introducing you to Jackie as a child, and it takes you through to when I'm about 26 years old. You get through that part of the book quite quickly. A lot of readers will say that they can't believe that I go through so much trauma as up until 16. But it's to give you some understanding. That background gives you some understanding into the existential journey that I go through thereafter. Later on in life, decades later, when my old pain stories are representing, or where I'm becoming aware of the fact that I actually haven't dealt with some of my trauma. I thought I had. I think I speak in early stages in part two, which is Burning Bridges. So I've gone through Burning Shame. I'm sharing all of my shame stories, and then Burning Bridges is where, as I'm trying to find Jackie, I end up damaging relationships. I end up getting divorced from a wonderful man. I'm grateful to say that we still have wonderful contact with each other. But I destroy things in my own way because I can't figure out who I am, and I cannot figure out how to be at peace with my past shame. And then Rising Phoenix is where I'm putting it all together and I'm figuring it out and putting myself together. And getting understanding for what life is about, first of all, how to come to living in the present moment and not be caught up in my past pain stories, and not let my past pain stories be the point of impact that triggers me to behave in ways that I'm not proud of. So even though I might be triggered at a moment in terms of my past pain stories, it's all about the response. Viktor Frankl says, our only choice we have in life is how we respond. And it's how I came to that understanding, but not only to have the understanding, how to live with that reality, which was very important for me on a day-to-day basis.
How to live with a reality on a day-to-day basis. Amazing. What does not yoga, identify as limiting beliefs? So when we read Life's Not Yoga, how does it identify and help us to identify to limiting beliefs in life?
I think the first thought that comes to me is that we are mostly unaware of our limiting beliefs, and we will justify anything that we do or say as a result of what is important for us, and that's usually a belief. So if I look back and, what my book unpacks is how I had to question my own belief system, and realizing that within my belief system, any belief that I had, I wanted to re-examine it and say, is it infused with love or not? Is it all inclusive? Does it accommodate everyone and everything? And so Life's Not Yoga is, we are not educated that way. We are educated in a way of, black and white and right and wrong. And, if you believe to this sort of, if you subscribe to a certain religion, that there's a dogma of exclusion of another religion. Whereas for me, Life's Not Yoga is, life is not as simple as just what we believe. Life is so much bigger than that. And so for me to get past my limiting beliefs was for me, what was important was to connect with my spirit so that I could open to a universal way of being, where there was love and acceptance for everyone, where I could look beyond dogma, I could look beyond judgment, look beyond fundamentalism, and just be present for love with every human being. And everything, actually, including my pain stories.
Amazing. And that's absolutely fantastic. We would like to take a moment to acknowledge some viewers at home. Jackie, thank you for sharing that snippet there. We are going to acknowledge some viewers that are joining us from wherever they're at. We would like to acknowledge you from Facebook, from YouTube, from Twitter, from our website. We say thank you for joining us. Desiree Richardson, she says hello and delighted to see us live, and we are delighted that you have joined us live and you've had the moment. Desiree is an amazing woman in the community who is doing some amazing things, and the founder and CEO of WHOA. And if you want to find out what is that is about, click on her name. Nomo, who has got a book launch coming up this weekend, and I've been talking about it for the last month every Wednesday. Good evening to you. Looking forward to the book launch on Saturday. Looking forward to seeing you. Looking forward to having a personally signed copy. And Joanne says thanks, and thank you. Thank you. We thank you, and we would like to encourage you to share on Twitter, to share on Facebook, to share on WhatsApp platforms, to share wherever you are on and whoever you can share with, to join us on this journey of Life's Not Yoga. We are joined by some amazing guests today, and we would like to take a moment for just a second to say happy birthday to someone. It's my sister's birthday. It was my sister's birthday on Sunday, but I still been celebrating it like it was my birthday. I'm the baby of the family, so I really get excited about birthdays, because when it comes to my birthday, I am super spoiled. So my sister Heather turned 60, and we have a video to share with you of some of the snippets of her memory as we remember her. So we are going to play this video and say happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. To my darling sister Heather, you are an inspiration. You are what love stands for. You are an encourager. You are super amazing. I love you so very much, and happy birthday to you. And I know I'm going to be celebrating your birthday for weeks to come, because you bring us that kind of joy. It was also a birthday to remember, and 60 is a gift from God, and we acknowledge that. Now, back to Life's Not Yoga, and our guest that we have today, Jackie Bennett. Jackie, I am going to look at chapter 13 and introduce this quotation. So we welcome you back onto our screens. And chapter 13 of Life's Not Yoga, Jackie, it reads, "In all chaos, there is a cosmos. In all disorder, a secret order." And it's a quotation by Carl Jung. Let's welcome back Jackie onto our screens. Jackie, in all chaos, there is a cosmos. In all disorder, a secret order, by Carl Jung. What made you choose this particular quotation for chapter 13?
That's interesting. 5 years ago, I went and I did an existential summit. I studied in Vienna in the summer, and I got to really understand a lot more of Jung's work. And Jung, being such a leading psychologist after Freud, was what was so important for me was his understanding of universal knowledge, of there's wisdom out there that we all have access to. And my book was really about, at this stage of my life, in chapter 13, you are starting to understand the extent of the chaos that I'm in, the extent of the chaos that I'm feeling. And whilst, you're reading at that stage, in all chaos, there is a cosmos, I didn't understand it then. In all disorder, a secret order. But as the reader has to go into that part of my life, I want to give them hope that despite what they're about to read in the chapter that's going to be chaotic, is that it's there's this knowing that they must continue reading, because that understanding is going to come in terms of the secret order in the cosmos, of the way that God allows us to thrive and survive anything.
Amazing. Just after a very touching bit where you talk to your mother and you say, "No will to live, I do confess, a wish to die today, lost in hell, I'm in distress, I cannot find a way, the screaming truth of this desire to end it all I see is in the shadow of myself and not in truth me." You move on from finishing with that poem that you wrote to chapter 18, and you begin to have one of Socrates' quotations, and it reads, "Beware the barrenness of a busy life. Beware of the barrenness of a busy life." Please take us through this moment.
Well, part one, Burning Shame, is dedicated to my father. And part two of the book, this is the start of part two, Burning Bridges, is dedicated to my mother. And my mother, she loved me, but we got to make peace in the last 7 years, which was fantastic. And, she passed in my arms last year after having particularly 3 amazing years together. But what happened from the time of when I finished part two at the age of 26, and we fast forward another 2 decades to part two, is my life just became busy. My life became busy with achievement, with accomplishment, with, I guess, ego attachments, but I was unaware of what I was doing. So that's what beware the busyness of a barren life. But someone like myself who'd suffered from suicide ideation as a child and tried to kill myself more than once, here I was again in part two in my mid-40s, and suddenly once again questioning my purpose, questioning meaning, and not having understanding that despite what I had accomplished, despite my education that I had gone out and gotten, despite the success that I achieved, it didn't make sense. I hadn't healed from my childhood trauma, and I didn't have understanding in life. And once again, this pressing need that I was having to suppress on a daily basis was this desire to possibly kill myself again. And that's what, the poem is dedicated to my mother, because I felt she denied for 3 decades when I used to say to her, "Mum, what did it feel like that your daughter tried to commit suicide when she was younger?" And she'd say, "Oh, Jacqueline, don't be stupid. You didn't try and kill yourself." And it wasn't until later on, as I said, 7 years ago, that we went to therapy together. And she then started to see me through my lens, as well as remember some of the things that she needed to cut out, because that was her way of dealing with trauma, was to forget things, as I talk about in the book. So that's why the poem's dedicated to her, because I wanted her to see me. I wanted her to see my pain.
And we feel that pain that comes through as you read that chapter in the book. In chapter 26, I love quotations, and I always love it when I love the way that you've used the quotations throughout the book. There are many more, and poems and reference points. In chapter 26, it reads, "We must be the change we wish to see in the world." And that is a Gandhi quotation. We must be the change we wish to see in the world. And in Life's Not Yoga, what change are we supposed to see in ourselves?
For me, what was so hard when I had to look in the mirror, when I had to really unpack my story, was realizing that I was living with a narrative of shame that I needed to get beyond. I was living with a narrative of blame that I needed to get beyond, because with shame, guilt, and blame, it's so much easier to hide behind our shame as opposed to living into our own mistakes. And so my father's shame I was using as a way to justify things that I were doing that were not acceptable. And I always wanted to expose the secret that he made me whole, but I was hiding my own secret self. So to be the change, I had to take far for things that had happened. And in order to be the change, I had to become love. I had to be love the way that people like Nelson Mandela, Jesus, Socrates, Buddha, Carl Jung, and many others have taught us how to be, have spoken about how to be. But it wasn't just understanding that, it was being that on a day-to-day basis, and by being the change, as Gandhi spoke of.
Amazing. On page 298, the poem there reads, "For myself, I wanted God to be external, as I wanted someone to name. I wanted God to be external, as I wanted someone to explain. I wanted God to be external, as I wanted someone to blame." I mean, it made me self-reflect. It made me look at my inner self, and I read it again, and I would like to share this with our viewers again. On page 298 of Life's Not Yoga, it reads, "For myself, I wanted God to be external, as I wanted someone to name. I wanted God to be external, as I wanted someone to explain. I wanted God to be external, as I wanted someone to blame." In chapter 38, on the next page, that carries on from that, there is a quotation from Buddha, and it reads, "No one saves us but ourselves. No one can, and no one may. We ourselves must walk the path." No one saves us but ourselves. No one can, and no one may. We ourselves must walk the path. What path do we have to walk to save ourselves?
Well, for me, it was reconnecting with the spirit that I was born into. Every baby is born pure. Every baby understands love. And then we take on parental or societal narratives that change that into becoming more than just love. We become our soul identity. And think of that as your personality expression. And that is because we inform the mind of the child, and we inform the body through educating the mind and the body towards taking on dogma or fundamentalism. But what if we look beyond that and we just stay with love? So for me, realizing that, because the question that I'm asking throughout this book is God love? Because that's what I was told as a child. That's what the Bible said to me. And yet I wanted to prove that God was love. But when I realized that God was within me in the form of love, in the way I bring myself into the world, I was suffering. I was in so much pain as a result of what I had gone through, that I wanted God to be external, because that's kind of how I was almost brought up to believe, that he was this guy, this man, or this person, or somebody external from me. And I wanted someone to explain why I was in so much pain. I wanted someone to explain to me why I'd gone through so much. But when I realized that I was looking for shame and blame, I was actually using it as an ego hook. So the path that I believe we all have to walk is to get away from our ego, where we are either in the space of, being in blame, or it's all about ego, or false humility, where we want to be better than. That's not what it was for me. It was realizing from the work of Jesus and Buddha and Socrates and all of these people who helped us realize that when we reconnect with the spirit of who we are, the spirit of who we are is within us, which is God, which it comes out into the world in the form of love. And that is my Be Love movement, the Dare to Be Love movement. When we can be love for whatever is, then we feel God within us. And that's the path that we walk. And that might be the path of, coming to the realization that Buddha did, or even someone like Jesus who walked with the cross and said, do not blame them for they, do not judge them for they do not know what they are doing. And it's in the do not judging, because, I don't stand by any, individual faith. I stand by God is available and universal and available to all of us. But it was in being at one with God, being at one with my spirit, being at one with love, which I use synonymously, is the path that I believe we all have to walk.
Amazing. It's so soothing listening to you. And as I'm remembering every single chapter and every single line, is say the book, if you've just joined us, we have got our guest, Jackie Bennett, the author of Life's Not Yoga, or Is It? And it's a Finding Love in the Chaos of Life, available on Amazon. You just need to visit her website, look up her Facebook pages, and it's life-changing. There are very few books that one can say that really touch them at a particular point in life. And for me, this is one of them. Jackie, we thank you for your time, and we will be back with you shortly. We are going to take now a moment to welcome our resident transpersonal psychologist, Professor Oluwafemi Esan, and he is the professor of transpersonal psychology and the founder and CEO of Elroy University. Professor, we welcome you on the Extraordinary Achievers Show today, and I thank you for joining us again.
Thank you so much for having me tonight.
Professor, his focus is on non-religious concept of spirituality, transpersonal psychology with the psychosynthesis coaching. Professor, you've been listening to Jackie, our guest that we have today,
Absolutely.
and these are areas of your expertise. I know this because we have discussed these in many forms and details. Professor, would you like to tell us, in your view, as a professor of psychology, what is spiritual identity?
Thank you, our chief host, for this wonderful opportunity. Yeah, when we talk about the concept of identity within the sphere of reality. So when you are looking at the issue of identity, you are talking about how do we identify ourselves, and then the aspect of spiritual identity, without wasting our time, is within the confinement of subjective reality. What do I mean that? The reality that you cannot navigate with your eyes, with your sensory apparatus. So there is a subjective reality that has to do with our identity. And that reality is what we call the spiritual consciousness. And in transpersonal approach, our fundamental philosophy is that you are a spirit that is trying to have a physical experience. And your identity, which is spiritual, is beyond time and space. It is beyond time and space. You exist beyond time and space. And there is a part of your identity that is eternal, that lives forever. I will use the quote of Queen Nadia Harari. She says, you are an element of God in God. I say it again. You are an element of God in God, and that is spiritual identity. Meaning that your real you is not this ephemeral thing. It's not your biological identity. Your real you is a part of you that is spiritual, that exists beyond time and space, and is eternal. It lives forever. So death is not the end of your existence. Death is your gateway to eternity without limitation. So what we believe in spiritual identity, according to transpersonal philosophy, is that you are being in existence before you manifest. I say it again, you have been in existence. In what form? You are a spirit before you are formed and shaped in your mother's womb. So your real you is the eternal you that exists beyond time and space. And that reality has enormous implication. By the time you begin to live by your spirit and not by your natural senses, and that is the life that brings the love, that brings the peace, that brings meaning and purpose by the existence of your spiritual identity. In other words, there's a you that the world is waiting for. There's a you that the whole world is expecting to reveal. And that real you is the glory, is the beauty that you carry in your spiritual identity. And that is where your purpose is found. And that's the beauty of life, is in your spiritual identity, which is your eternal self that exists beyond time and space. And that's your spiritual identity. Thank you.
Amazing. Professor, the next question that comes to mind is, with what and following on what you've just shared with us, is what is the function of the mind?
Oh, thank you. Yeah, it is often believed that there is a place of man, which is from the Greek word psyche, psyche, which it simply means the seat of consciousness. Now, the spirit and lives in the body. So you are a spirit being, but your mind is the place of your consciousness, whereby you begin to navigate. And so the mind asks, going by the psychodynamic approach, and there are other theories of the mind. So we have the conscious mind, the subconscious mind, and the unconscious mind, and so the mind is a place of reasoning. The mind is a place of emotion. And the most important part of the mind is your subconscious. And that is where all the traumas of life is recorded. Every experience is recorded in the subconscious mind. Kojaki just shared that, with us. Every one of us, every experience you ever gone through in your life, they don't go away. They are recorded in the subconscious. And that is a part of the mind that people don't really explore. And it's so powerful, it controls our behavior. In the subconscious mind is where we have the operating system that become a default that determines the way we reason. In the subconscious mind is where we have our belief system, our self-concept, our self-value, our self-image. All these reside in the subconscious mind. And that is where the battle of life lies. In the mind, which is the seat of consciousness, the seat of reason, the seat of logic. But however, the subconscious mind is the most important part of the human mind. And it is not visible to the naked eye. And it's something that is very abstract, but its reality cannot be denied. It's there. All the memories and the feelings of the memories are always recorded in the subconscious. And that's the most powerful part of the mind. Thank you.
Amazing, Professor. Professor, moving on in line with, we've come from this spiritual identity. We've come from looking at the function of the mind. Now, what is the impact of the soul on the body?
the body. Thank you so much for this question. Now, my background, I was fortunate. I have my background in medicine. So I spent 4 years in medical school with medical degree equivalent anatomy and physiology. Now, there's what in medical sciences, there's what we call psychosomatic phenomenon. And what that means, the prefix psycho is from the word psyche, which is the mind. And the word soma means body cell. Now, what it simply means is that the mind controls the body. The mind controls the body. So whenever I'm sick in my mind, it affects my emotion, it affects my physiological process. So it is very powerful because the link, the mind and the body, there's a strong connection. So whenever you feel pain, check your thinking, which is your mind. Whenever you feel joy, check your thinking, which is your mind. So the thoughts has emotion. Why is that? Because to every thinking, there's a feeling. I say it again. To every thinking, there is a feeling. And this is in the mind. And it has a direct effect on our body. So most of the problem, it is evidence in medical sciences. Research have shown that in health psychology, that the health of your mind predict the health of your body. The health of your mind predict the health of your body. And that's why you must be disciplined in your mind. Be very disciplined in what goes on in your mind. Why? The dominant thought in your mind affect a dominant influence on your body. I say it again. The dominant thoughts in your mind has a dominant effect on your body. So the joy, the thinking, whatsoever you focus your mind on, you will start feeling it. Why? Mind is thought. Thought is emotion. Mind is thought. Thought is also emotion. And so the mind is so powerful. In fact, the Jewish book says, out of the abundance of the heart, the mind speaketh. It said, guard your heart with every diligence, for out of it come the forces that governs life. Your life, your feeling, your body is a product of your dominant thinking. What are you thinking about lately? Check your thinking, and then it can indicate your feeling. So the mind is so powerful over the body. It's an evidence that you cannot deny. You see the way you feel about yourself, the way you think, you feel it. You think, you feel. I think, I feel. That is the power of the mind of the body. Thank you.
Amazing. You think it, you feel it, you think it, you feel it. We are what we think and what we say. If you've just joined us, or if you didn't catch his name, this is Professor Oluwafemi Esan. He is a professor of transpersonal psychology at Elroy London University, vice chancellor, PhD in transpersonal psychology, and a principal consultant in transpersonal psychology. His focus is on a non-religious concept of spirituality, transpersonal psychology with psychosynthesis coaching, the development of the transpersonal self through spiritual coaching. Professor organizes seminars and workshops on transpersonal awareness with the application of transpersonal psychology in everyday living. Professor, let's look at some comments that have come in. We have a comment from Noma, who has a book launch this weekend. And she says, we never die. That's what I love about living. And Noma goes on to say, always existing over and over again. Noma goes on to say, it's all in the heart. We find our subconscious mind as its own energy field that scientists have proven. And Noma goes on to say, Professor is right on the point.
Thank you.
Noma says, thoughts, feelings, emotions equal actions. Very true. And we create everything that we think to experience. Podcaster Noma, we thank you for that input, and we thank you for joining us today. Professor, we thank you for your wisdom. We thank you for your knowledge, and we thank you for joining us on the Extraordinary Achievers Show. We would like to thank you for joining us from wherever you are today, and we will see you shortly, Professor, as we acknowledge our special guest today, Jackie Bennett, and we welcome her back onto our screen. Jackie is an adventurer, both in journeys of the spirit and in the world of financial strategy. She was raised in South Africa. She's qualified in business studies, which has enabled her to help numerous businesses achieve the strategic and financial goals. Jackie has also pursued a parallel interest in spirituality, which has guided her into her writing career. In her first publication, Jackie wrote her memoir, Life's Not Yoga, in a quest to make spiritual sense of the traumatic life's events she has experienced. Jackie, we have some comments we would like to share with you.
Thank you.
As they come up on our screens, we thank Jackie for joining us today. Norma says very powerful, and that was in relation to, as you were sharing with us, and she says inspirational. You are coming from Joanne, and we have Joanne, our Empress Joanne, our fitness Empress says, definitely must be the change we wish to see in the world. And that was a comment in what you were sharing with us. And Norma says, Jackie is so spot on at being with love, one with love, that all God is who we are, who we need to become. And we would like to thank you for all your comments. Jackie, what would you like to share with our viewers as we leave our viewers behind? What is it that you want them to know about Jackie Bennett, Life's Not Yoga? What is it that springs up to mind now?
I think the thing that's speaking to me at the moment is I just want to have a sit-down meal for a couple of hours with, particularly, Professor Umfuweni, wherever you are in the world. I don't actually know at this moment, but with you and Lady Juanette, I think it would be fantastic if we could sit down and have a long conversation, because you articulate technically and scientifically and academically what I'm writing about. I'm just the journey, the traveler that's talking about the same things. And yes, I've read about it and I've done some studies, but certainly not in the way that you articulate and explain it. And that's what's so exciting, is that mine is more of a layman's version of everything that you said, and a paint by numbers version for the readers of all of the academic stuff that you were talking about. But it's so inspiring listening to both of you, and certainly the comments that are coming in, and listening to the people who are participating tonight, the aspect of keeping this conversation alive. Because when I got to this understanding, and really the felt experience was the most important thing for me, the felt experience of being a spirit, the felt experience of having my human experience, and living from that place, it was easy for me to bring love into the world for every touch point that I have in my life. And I'm just so grateful. I sometimes feel that I had to have those 9 near-death experiences in order to get there. And I don't wish that on anyone. But I had them, I think, so that I could share my story in a way that, for those of us that won't be able to necessarily, have the years of education that you have, Professor, to be able to have an understanding of it. But thank you for doing the work that you, both of you, do, Lady Juanette and Professor, because it makes it so much easier for us in the world to understand our own journey.
Thank you, Jackie. Jackie, I would like to take you now to chapter 41. And chapter 41 on page 315. And it says, when we no longer are able to change a situation, we are challenged to change ourselves. And as we all reflect on that, I would like to comment on the lunch. Professor, if you could please bring Professor on the screen to join us. Professor, did you hear what Jackie says? Jackie says we're invited for lunch. The question is, are we going to South Africa or is she coming here?
Yes. Yeah, it's going to be two-way affair. Yeah, I mean, we invite her over, and then she will also go there. Yeah, it's
Yeah, I think we'll do both places.
Yeah, yes, absolutely.
Okay.
And thank you, Jackie, for those positive. That's very kind of you. The positive feedback that you give to me. That's very kind of you. And thanks so much. I really appreciate that. And I also want to say to you that you are brilliant because you are coming from the place of experiential knowledge, and which bring the power of your story. So your autobiographical approach is a very beautiful thing to read about you. Thanks so much for that.
I'm thinking I've got to co-author my next book with you, sir.
No problem. You are more than welcome. Yeah, it's a privilege.
So
to do.
exciting.
Yeah. Thank you so much for that.
I am excited. A new book has just been written live on the Extraordinary Achievers Show.
Yeah.
So when they co-author this book, I'm going to be holding it right here. And I'm going to say, this is where it was birthed. It was birthed right here.
Yeah.
Just
Right
after,
Yeah.
just after Life's Not Yoga. And I don't know if you saw the comment that came up on the screen. Norma says she would like to be part of that lunch too.
I'm sure.
Yeah, it's getting bigger. Of course.
So Norma, from what I heard, lunch is in London first, and after we host lunch in London, we are all going to South Africa and we are going to have lunch with Jackie. And for the next book, who knows where we're going to be? I just know I'm going to be there.
Exactly.
Good.
Professor, we thank you for coming onto the screens. We go back to Jackie Bernard. Jackie, we were reading chapter 41 and the quotation that you mentioned, and it reads, when we are no longer able to change a situation, we are challenged to change ourselves. When we are no longer able to change a situation, we are challenged to change ourselves. And this is something that echoes throughout my life and throughout my life's journey. So it was something that I was able to take a moment and reflect on the changes that I have had to make when I couldn't change certain situations. But please go ahead and share with our viewers what that chapter now entails.
It's not even so much about the chapter as it's about, you know, something that's required every day of my life. And I never forget, I was moving my mother in her last couple of months of her life. She was moving into a frail care center. She had bone cancer, and she knew she didn't have much time, and we were spending a lot of time together. And on the particular day that we were moving stuff, one of the family members had done something that had really she felt I should be very upset about. And I remember going through the whole day, and my mother just looked at me at the end of the day. She said, how did you do it? You know, because she knows the old Jackie would have snapped or been angry or said something. And I just remember she said to me, how do you do it? How do you get it right? I said, you know, Mum, I still get it wrong so often. But at least when I get it wrong, I now know. And when I do get it right, I celebrate it. And as opposed to being upset about, you know, a family member letting us down as we felt that it happened, was just to carry on with the day and celebrate the fact that we had this time together and that we could do what we could do together and not waste any time or energy on being frustrated with what the other person did or feeling disappointed, because it was pointless, really. So that's what it is. It's about finding the change. So noticing, as the professor is saying, there's a thought, or there's something in the mind, there's a thought, and attached to that is an emotion. So often the emotion is the desire to respond in a way that might be to be angry or upset with the person. But then we also have the choice, as Frankel says, is to stop and be the change. And know that you can make a choice to be differently in that moment. And when we choose to be love, we just be love for the moment, soften, and have fun anyway.
Thank you. I'm looking at page 339. But before I share my excitement of what's on page 339, as we're coming to the close of the book before we talk about the author, let's read some comments that have been shared with us. Norma says, my podcast is all that Jackie and Professor, what you're both sharing. That is what she talks about on her podcast. And so if you want to know more, you know where that is. Follow Norma and follow her podcast. Her podcasts are excellent. I really think they're amazing. Bangi says, man has a spirit, soul, and body. God integrates our mind, emotions, and will to interact with the spirit and body. Our spirit connects with God. I think you have many co-authors that are applying there, Jackie, today.
It's going to be a fantastic book.
Everyone wants to be part of this book, the next book. Professor, you have competition. Norman says, people are so afraid to think in a transformational way as they'd rather have someone or something to blame for their life's challenges. And remembering that Norma has her first book coming out and a book launch this week. So, yeah. Oh, it's exciting moments. Norma, I'm looking forward to having you on the show to talk about your book. And Bangi says, if mental health issues are common, what prevents many Christian women from seeking help they need? And that is a question to you. If mental health issues are common, what prevents many Christian women from seeking the help they need? That is a question directed to you, Jackie.
You know, I look at somebody like my mother, and the way that I grew up. You know, I grew up in a very conservative Christian narrative, and I talk about it in my book. And you know, I reiterate that I believe, I don't subscribe to any religious, secular view of looking at things. I believe that God is available to all of us. I think it's fear. There's a lot of fear. Certainly, you know, in conversation with my mother, you know, because I had done a lot of therapy, and their belief was my mother and father believed that anybody who did therapy, there was something wrong with them. So there was something wrong with Jacqueline. And my mother changed her mindset, you know, years later by being in conversation. So I think it goes down once again to a belief system. If we believe something is bad, then we will run with that story if we've been told it from a young age. And for whatever reason, my mother and father, from their conservative upbringing, believed that. I didn't. And so I explored therapy, which did wonders for me and helped me, you know, I think open up to my spirit, and so that I could get connected with my spirit in order to integrate in body, mind, and soul. I don't know the real reason for each person, obviously, but that would be my belief, is that a lot of people that I've experienced from a conservative point of view in the Christian faith, it's a fear-based narrative, and I can only hope for them, you know, a bit more understanding and opening. But then I also have, you know, Christian relatives who see it differently.
Absolutely. It's a personal viewpoint of how individuals tend to look at their lives and take it on. Quite agree. Jackie, we were on page 339 of Life's Not Yoga, and I was about to share with the viewers a couple of sentences from there. The paragraph there reads, I have chosen to share my recollection of these events, both happy and sad, as an educational tool for readers also wanting to live a life of joy, free from the shame, from the guilt and blame of their life stories. I really like that.
Thank you.
You go on to write, I believe we're all spirits of love, figuring out our journey, and in that respect are no different from each other. By opening to this truth, I have found the ease to live in the presence of my full self without having to suppress or deny any part of my story or my truth. In fully loving and accepting myself for all my perfect imperfections, I have opened up to unconditional love for all others, even as I navigate my own human challenges. While I love reading about and absorbing a wide range of spiritual teachings from institutions that do not discriminate or judge the teachings of others, please note that my writings are non-denominational. I believe that access to a spiritual life with a connection to God, to love, is available to all and does not require a single or specific dogma. I do not believe God love is that small. Whenever I refer to or quote the work of any of many great spiritual teachers, I do not advocate the teachings of one above any other. At the same time, I comfortably and openly have my favorites. Lastly, thank you to my little spirit friend Sophie for cuddling up to me at night after the long hours I spend at my desk. I remain a student as I continue to share the message of love. Do you know, when I read that bit, I had goosebumps, and the goosebumps just came back on now again. I mean, I felt your humility, Jackie. I mean, you glow that humility as we look at you now. You glow that truth, love. You glow everything that we all wish for as we go to sleep. What we pray for in each day, we can see it glowing on you. And that bit for me, when I finished reading that book, I cried tears of joy. And I'd like to say thank you for sharing that moment. We are going to give you a minute to share with our audience as we say goodnight to you today.
Well, first of all, once again, thank you so much for inviting me to join you this evening. And I've experienced so much warmth from yourself and the professor and the people who are watching tonight. And what excites me is that if I evoked emotion in you in the book, then I've achieved the goal that I wanted to, because it's in the experience of feeling. As the professor said, we have thought, but we also have emotion. But in the way that I might have provoked emotion in you, there was connection with us. And there was connection of compassion for me and compassion for yourself. And in that moment, I then call that a connection with God, because we feel love for each other. There's understanding in that common emotion. We might have different thoughts. We might have different stories. We might have different pain experiences. We might have different traumas. But what we share are our emotions. And when we can feel each other, then I believe we are at one with love. When we can feel each other, we're at love with God. We're at one with God. And that's what I felt tonight. And I just want to thank you for that. And you felt that in the story of my book, because you felt yourself. And as I said to you earlier, those are my moments when I know that I'm on the path of purpose. That's my ping moment, when I know that the reader has felt the experience and wants to also get onto the bandwagon of being a revolutionary, and wants to get onto the treadmill and make a change in the world and bring peace and harmony to everybody. That's what really matters to me, and that's what excites me the most. And that's what I felt here tonight, and I thank you for that.
We thank you, and we are excited. Well, I am super excited. I don't know about Professor and Nona and Bangi and everybody else is jumping on this bandwagon of lunch.
We're going to have a big lunch in London.
One of them is cooking or paying. That's what I hope for. I would like to enjoy my lunch and just listen to you. Thank you so very much. I am looking forward to that book that you're going to co-author with Professor. With Professor, I am so looking forward to it. We have some comments that we would like to share just before we go. Vangi says, thank you, Jackie, for the answer. And Bami Collie Roberts, one of my most favorite people on earth, says, our mind and spirit are connected by the actions and are the result of our thoughts. We should be mindful of our thoughts and actions, as Professor shared with us.
Indeed.
And Patrick T says, as a non-dualistic person, I see spirituality as a connection to oneself and to world outside of consuming. I am in my practice sitting as stillness. I have seen referred to as the kingdom of God. Thank you for sharing that with us, Patrick. Thank you. Bangi says, optimum health is most attainable when your mind, body, and spirit are in alignment. Amazing. Norma says, podcaster Norma and now author Norma Ellis says, our parents and the world has programmed us from birth with their beliefs until we come to that place they thought our personal experience we can delete and reprogram ourselves. But let's not forget to also take on a little bit from our parents. Still got some of those things that we take from our parents, and you're quite right. And then there's some things that we have to reprogram. I agree with you, Norma. I was a mummy's girl. I was a daddy's girl. So, so I'm a bit of a spoiled one. And I would like to say thank you once again for joining us today. We would like to thank our viewers. Professor, we would like to thank you for joining us on the Extraordinary Achievers Show. And this has been the third week running that, Professor, you've joined us and you've become our resident transpersonal psychologist.
Thank you.
We are planning on doing so many other different things and bringing on workshops and other things that we are working on for the future. We are grateful for the moments that we get to discuss and to do. Jackie, what an air of joy and calm and absolutely everything good that you brought to us today. And you with us and our viewers and audience. We would like to say thank you.
Thank you as well from me to all of you. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. To our viewers at home, to our viewers at work, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, Meetup, our website. Thank you for joining us, and see you next week, Wednesday at 8 p.m. as we bring another riveting topic to discuss. You know, I thank you so very much. And once again, we would like to say to my sister, my mama, my friend, my inspiration, my love, my sister Heather, a happy 60th birthday. And as many people have said, we are like twins, and how she gets to be 60 and we look alike is amazing, because I am only 21. However, you live life like you're 30 years old. You live life like it has just been brought to you for the very first time. Your bubbliness, your joy, everything. I grew up always wanting to dress like you, talk like you, walk like you, do everything like you. And you are a huge inspiration. I love you. I love my sisters. And you are a sister in a million. May God bless you. You're an amazing mother. You're an amazing auntie. You're amazing every single little thing. Not because you're my sister. I don't say this because you're my sister. I say this because I mean it from the bottom of my heart. May God forever bless you and be with you. Long may you live. Long may we live together, that we enjoy each and every day happily, celebrating what is love. And we would like to invite you to lunch with Jackie and the Professor. There you go, you're invited. Until next week at 8 p.m. Wednesday, we look forward to joining you then. For today, thank you for joining us.
Thank you for watching. You can now follow us on Facebook and subscribe our YouTube channel. Don't forget to like, share, and comment.